welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, episode 115. Today, we're going to be talking about 9 simple tricks that are going to help you to get your emails opened more frequently. So these are going to be simple ways that you're going to be able to implement right away. And I think that email is so important. It's one of the most important things that you need to be working on in your veterinary practice. The reason for that is it's a medium that you actually own, right? So if you're sending out an email, you get to control when it goes out, how often it goes out, and ultimately, you own that asset. If you have Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, Snapchat accounts, whatever it is, you don't own that because Facebook owns that page. Ultimately, if Facebook goes under, or which is not going to happen, but if they do changes to the algorithms or something that diminishes your reach, right, and your posts don't get distributed anymore, you don't really have any control over that. But with email, it's something that you own and you control. Not only that, email is important for retargeting lists as well. So I've done other episodes about retargeting. That's not what we're talking about today, though. We're talking about 9 simple tricks to get your emails opened more frequently. So I think that that's it's something that every practice needs to be working on. So be sure to listen all the way through. These tricks and tips are pretty simple, and you can definitely implement them right away. Before we begin, I'd like to mention a few things. First, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, and if you could do me a huge favor, please leave me an honest review. I would really, really appreciate it. Also, be sure to check out my newsletter. It's filled with tips and tricks that will help you become a better marketer at your veterinary practice. If you text the word veterinary to 44222, you'll be signed up for that newsletter. Also, be sure to connect on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, wherever you like to connect. I'm there. And then I'd also like to mention this episode is being sponsored by snoutschool.com. Do you ever feel like you're wasting time with your veterinary hospital social media efforts? Veterinary practice manager Danielle Lampert has put together a list of 5 awesome social media tools that every hospital needs to succeed. Danielle is dedicated to teaching veterinary hospitals to use social media via her website, snoutschool.com. So go to snoutschool.com/Brandon to get her list of 5 must-have social media tools now. You'll learn how to create professional-looking social media graphics, you'll save time by scheduling posts, and you'll find where your clients are spending time online. Not only that, she's got great tips for getting your whole veterinary team to understand the importance of social media. So head on over to snoutschool.com/Brandon to get the 5 must-have social media tools for your practice today. That's snoutschool.com/BRANDON. All right, so let's get into today's episode. Actually, before we start, one more thing that I want to mention. A couple weeks ago, I had somebody reach out, was asking some questions about SEO. And just a real quick story. SEO is search engine optimization, if you're not familiar with it. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions regarding search engine optimization. And this person was interested in finding out why their rankings were slipping and what to do about it. And so I have this report that I use, and I create a report. It's a 23-point report on SEO and what is going on with your practice's SEO specifically. And it goes really in depth on 2 levels, the domain level and then also at the page level. And so anyways, she said, wow, this is wildly helpful. I really, really appreciate it. And I thought there's probably some other people who would be interested in that. So if you're at all interested in finding out how your practice SEO is doing, I have this new 23-point SEO audit that I'm offering to people. So if you're interested at all in finding out more about that, be sure to send me an email, brandon@veterinarymarketingpodcast.com, and just have the subject line as SEO. And I'm happy to help and explain more about that. I just wanted to mention that because I never talked about that in the past. So let's get into today's episode, 9 simple tricks to help optimize your email opens. So why are email opens so important? And first of all, if they don't ever read your email, then you're not going to have the ability to talk to them, right? So your emails need to be educating them. They need to be helping to promote product sales and also retaining your clients and providing value for them. So with email, I think that in the United States, the average adult receives about 126 emails per day on average. And that's, for me, I know that's pretty low because I actually receive hundreds and hundreds of emails every day. And And right now, as I look at my phone, I have 54,000 unread emails, which is crazy. But I think that most people receive more emails than they know what to do with. So you're really competing with all that other noise in that space. And so it's important that you do your best and use some simple tricks to try and really tilt the odds into your favor so that you can get those open rates. So let's dive into these 9 tricks. So tip number 1, your timing that you send out your emails is incredibly important. Now, you don't want to be involved in what I like to call the inbox purge, right? Where people just go through and they delete all the emails that are already there. Maybe it's from the weekend or something. If it's promotion, they're just in the mode and going through clicking and deleting emails so that they can clean out their inbox in order to kind of have something that they can work through. So what I've found is the best times to deliver emails are either between 8:30 and 10 a.m., 2:30 and 3:30 p.m., or between 8 and midnight. So if you're scheduling out your email broadcasts, your newsletters and things, try and keep it in those times, and that will help you to avoid being included in that email purge, right? So again, 8:30 to 10 a.m., 2:30 to 3:30 p.m., or 8 to midnight. So let's just dive really quick into that. If it's between 8:30 and 10 a.m., chances are they are opening their morning emails. If it's coming in at that time, it will likely be something that they open or respond to. That 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. will hopefully hit them before end of the day when they're opening emails if they're at work or something. And then 8 to midnight, that is just something to test out to see how your list responds to, because they might just have that as the first thing that they open in the morning, or depending on if it's a personal email, they'll receive it when they're watching TV or something. And that's typically when people have their phones in hand, is when they're watching TV. So it'll, typically people watching a show, they're usually surfing Facebook or other social media while they're watching, right? So the phone has quickly become the most important screen that people have. And so typically when they're relaxing and things like that, they are using their phones as well. So tip number 2 is, as much as possible, use personalization. So call them out by name. Having names in headlines helps to increase open rate, and I've read lots of studies on this specifically, but having names in headlines helps increase open rate by as much as 23%. Now, obviously, if you do it all the time, they'll become accustomed to it, and so you still want to switch things up every once in a while. Depending on how much you email them, though, if you're only doing a monthly newsletter, then having first name is definitely important. Okay, tip number 3 is to make sure that the tone of your emails is definitely positive in the morning, or a little bit more negative possibly at nighttime. Now, I'm not trying to say be negative and say things like your pet's going to die, right? Or that would be terrible. Don't ever say that in the headline. But having something in the morning, for example, like these 3 tips will help your cat to have a better day, right? Which, I don't know, that's a silly email headline, but just for example, right? That's definitely a positive tone. And people typically respond better to positive messages in the morning. And then something that could be considered or negative, and you don't necessarily want to be doom and gloom all the time, but like, let's say, for example, you're sending out a heartworm email. Say, heartworm could really hurt your pet. Find out how, right? One is definitely positive, and one has a more negative tone. So if you're going to do something that you would consider even possibly to have a negative tone, make sure to do that in the evening, and you'll get a better result and open rates for sure. Tip number 4 is to be provocative, controversial, or relevant. Nobody wants boring emails. You get boring emails all the time. And I'm not saying to go out of your way to cause problems for yourself, but don't be boring with your email headlines. So, for example, a terrible idea would be to say something like, we totally support 100% of the time declawing cats, right? That would be the worst thing ever. That would be very provocative, but that would be terrible. So don't do something terrible. Use common sense here. But don't just say your headline shouldn't ever be monthly newsletter. That's a terrible headline. Things like, these 5 tips can help your pet stay cooler in the summer, or amazing treats that will help your pet, whatever it is. But make sure that it's interesting, and will help to get open rates. If things are happening locally in the news or something, right? You can kind of piggyback off those kind of headlines, but be sure to be local and relevant, and please don't be boring with your headlines because nobody's going to open them. People are not just sitting there waiting for you to send out a boring email. One thing that also can help, tip number 5, is to use odd or specific numbers. So, for example, if you're telling stories about pets or you're telling stories about procedures that you've done, something that you could do to add an interesting fact to it would be add specific numbers. So, for example, if you wanted to talk about dental month, for example, you could say something like 547, or whatever the number was of last year, how many people came in for dental month, right? 547 people did this last year. Here's why you should consider it too, right? It's very interesting. Or 547 people did this for their pets last year, and it changed their pets' lives. Whatever it is that you want to do, adding a specific number, it would create curiosity and help to get your emails opened as well. So one thing, the next tip is to keep it short. One thing that you can do frequently in your emails is just have too long of a headline. So you want to make sure and keep it between keep it at 25 characters, somewhere in between 6 to 10 words. So it needs to be concise enough to convey your main idea. Otherwise, it will be cut off. So if you are going to use a longer headline, make sure that the interesting part is at the front, because that's important for sure. So as much as possible, 6 to 10 words, and then 25 characters, if you can do it. So tip number 7 is to use that second subject line. So you probably noticed a few times that when you receive emails from people, you'll have the headline, and then right next to it, it says, click to read this email, or something like that. Click to see the HTML version. And so the preview, and so if take a look at your phone, open your mail client, and see how this looks. And that's one thing, as I'm mentioning all of these things, think about how you use email and also what emails you're opening. And then use that information when you're creating your own emails. But you see that you have a second tagline that's the beginning, the first sentence of your email. And that shows up. Now, sometimes if you're using an email provider like Infusionsoft or Aweber or MailChimp, it'll have a button at the very top in the header that says click to view this in an HTML browser or something to that effect. And that doesn't do anything for you. Or it says having trouble viewing these images, click here to view in your browser. That's not helping you at all. So you want to make sure and take that away and put something interesting in there. So that opening hook should be the words that you're wanting to convey to get them to open the email and continue on, or help to continue expressing the headline idea. Especially if you have to cut the headline short, continue on in that first sentence in the body there. One thing that you can do too to help increase your open rates, and this is tip number 8, is to add symbols. So you probably received emails with all kinds of weird symbols. Companies that I know are notorious for this, it's not a bad thing at all, but people who I see doing this the most specifically are travel companies. They'll add red exclamation points or pictures of palm trees or pictures of airplanes or arrows, all kinds of things. And it definitely gets your attention. And so the way that you can do that is you can search for email glyphs, and a website that you can go to is emailstuff.org/glyph. And there is a good search engine where you can type it in, and then you can copy and paste the email glyph that you want to add into your subject line. So they have all kinds of cool ones. They have cats and dogs and all kinds of good pet-related glyphs that will help your emails to stand out for sure. From the studies that I've seen on conversion, just on split tests and things, this can typically raise your open rates anywhere from 10 to 15%. So it's just a really simple little trick that can add a little boost to your opens, because it definitely is out of the ordinary and it gets people's attention. So the last tip that I have here is to use a picture or a logo for your practice, and make sure that you have your branding down. You know what you're going to use. I see a lot of vets who own a practice use their own picture, And that's probably not the way to go if you're sending emails that are branded by the practice. Unless you want the face of the practice to be a specific person, having the logo is important. So you probably noticed that in your email client, if you use Gmail or Yahoo Mail or Bing or all these other email providers. And so just real quick, a note here on how people use email. First off, Apple iPhone is 31% of email opens. So the Apple mail client. Next is Gmail with 21%. Third is Apple iPad email client with 11%. Google Android, which again would be Gmail. Then Apple Mail, then Outlook, then Outlook.com, and then Yahoo Mail. Those round up the top 8 email clients. And that's something like the top 90% of email users. So when you're thinking about email, I would, if you don't have a Gmail account, I would definitely open one to see what the experience is like and to see what your emails look like in Gmail. If you optimize for your Gmail, you'll be fine on Apple as well. But when you send an email, what Gmail does is they use the logo that's associated with your Google Plus account. And so the name, if you don't have any picture put there, it'll just be typically the first letter of your sender's name. Right, so if I didn't have my Google Plus account from my Brandon Brashears account that I send Gmails through, it would just have a B next to it. But when I send an email, since I have my Google Plus account linked to it, it uses the picture from my profile on Google Plus. Same thing with business. So the email that you have linked to your Google Plus account will be branded specifically to that email that you send. And so having brand congruency is important. And people, once they recognize your logo and things, they'll hopefully open more because they know who it's coming from, they know it's not spam, and you'll be a trusted person to send them emails, especially if it has valuable information on the inside. So that is definitely something that you want to have. It'll help to increase your opens, and it'll help to brand your emails as well. So then when people on your email, it matches your Facebook page, it matches your Instagram, everything is congruent. Your website matches, and that kind of brand congruency is definitely important. It helps to establish trust and will increase conversion. If people see who it's from, they go to a landing page, for example, the landing page looks like the email sender and everything makes sense. Anytime that you add kind of something weird or something doesn't look right in the process, you're going to lose conversion simply because people are going to have to figure out where they are. Is this the right place? Am I being, people are scared of getting scammed and all these other things. So you want to make sure it's congruent and simple for them. Now I'm going to give you one bonus tip real quick. And this is something that I do all the time because I absolutely love good emails. So I'm signed up on all kinds of e-commerce emails, and I have it being put into a folder on my Gmail account from marketers that I really like or companies that I really like. And then when I find email subject lines that are really good, I will save that email and then use that email folder as an idea for adapting emails that I will send out. Because specifically, sometimes it's hard to write emails, and sometimes you get writer's block. You don't know if what you're writing is good. So using other people's emails as a guideline, especially if you think it's good or interesting or it really catches your attention, save it so that you can use it for future emails that you send out and, try and model what they're doing. So I hope that this was helpful to you today. As always, if you ever have any questions, comments, or need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can send me an email at brandon@veterinarymarketingpodcast.com. You can go to the Facebook page and message me there. It's facebook.com/veterinarymarketingpodcast. Or you can go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com. All of the social icons are up there. Again, thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you on next episode.